Hello, my name is Anita Quiroz. I will be introducing my manager today. Do you mind introducing yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Louis Beltran. I'm a director for the Northeast, representing a software company that does software and services.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to be asking you the following questions, if you can please answer them. First one will be, how do you identify internal and external factors affecting your business industry?
At the corporate level, we use consulting services to help identify trends or services along with new technologies. The data is sorted and used to create territory plans by each major industry in the region. Access to research material and analytics via AI help redefine our service offerings to our largest prospects.
All right, perfect. How has the organization's culture changed over the past 5 years?
Shifting an organization's culture to align with ever-changing values and goals is a challenge. So, in my tenure, the executive level has changed out, and every time it changes out, the core values change. So, access. COVID forced changes as an organization, and we adapted just like we adapt when you get a new executive that has a different direction. And so we leverage the technology that's available to us, and I would say the organization itself is more customer centric.
Okay, thank you. What issues concern you or concerns do you experience regarding supplies or services needed to continue with your company's vision, mission, and goals?
Technical resources is always an issue. Application development is always an issue. Limited resources at the client level. So what they want to do, they don't necessarily have people on staff that can get them there.
Okay.
And I would say that we're, the implementation of the AI technology is a big issue right now with a lot of companies. And again, it's not that they don't have their own development teams. It's just that what they want to do, they can't get there.
Okay.
So there's a need for people like me and the company that I represent.
As a manager, how do you handle your employees?
Well, for me, they are very valuable team members who directly impact my success and the company's ability to grow. I've had good managers and I've had bad managers, and I prefer the good ones.
All right. Can you give us an example of bad manager and bad manager? What is your definition of a bad manager?
I would say someone that isn't engaged, someone that doesn't know what motivates the employee. We all need jobs. We're all here for jobs.
Absolutely.
But in order to really achieve the success that we're asking and to work with the workload that we have, you need to ask questions to figure out how we're going to get there. I know the employee wants to maximize their compensation plan
Absolutely.
and make the most money that they can, and I want to help them get there. But you have to be able to recognize that we all have learning gaps, and we have to overcome those, and that's where you get additional resources to pull in. So if you have a manager that kind of acknowledges that and understands that, and you put it on the table at the beginning, it makes it easier. On the bad side, it's, if you just, and I've had them where they just give you the quota and then you're kind of left on your own.
Yeah.
And then you might violate a policy because the policies weren't kind of laid out for you.
Okay, thank you so much. What factors do you consider when making staffing decisions or restructuring teams? Restructuring teams.
Let's see. Well, anytime there's change in the territory, it's always team dynamics. You got to fit in with the rest of the group. So that's an important area. Necessary skill sets, identifying what they are up front during the interviewing process, and then identifying skill gaps. That's important because you can put that on a list of things that something else other than just the normal things to do that you work on for yourself, and those are the things typically that you take with you. It's what I call it. So if you say you're going to, volunteer at whatever, and it's going to help you because of this reason, and then you fulfill that, well, that's something that stays with you and you take with you on your resume. It's not just a did you do your number or not do your number. And then defining the expected workload up front.
Thank you. Is working remotely an option for your organization? If yes, what challenges does working remotely affect your company's efficiency and effectiveness?
Yes, by the nature of the beast, we're an extended sales organization covering 25 states.
Okay.
So we're in the field. They don't always have locations or offices across the country. That's not a thing that they do anymore. So, but we meet quarterly as a team to review and modify and adjust the plans so we can make corrections along the way. The technology that we use is Salesforce automation, CRM, video conferencing, and email automation, along with the AI products that the IBM suite of products uses.
Okay, thank you. What type? Well, you already answered that question for me. I was going to ask what type of technology is being used, and you already answered that, so I appreciate that. But if you want to touch more in depth, you can.
No, that's pretty much the applications that we use. The Salesforce automation piece allows me to track a lot of stuff depending on what information the company wants to gather. Believe it or not, in sales, it's kind of like a three-dimensional chess game that you're playing with your prospective client, and sometimes you can't get to the answer straight up because it might affect the sale, and you can't obviously offend the client. So with these tools that we have now, it kind of allows you to funnel the information to allow progress in the sales environment and eventually get to the goal. And by using information that the client provides you is always the best.
Thank you. How do you define the current corporate culture with your organization? How do you address potential culture differences in a diverse workforce?
I would say we strive to make it a positive work culture, promoting integrity, teamwork, and transparency is the best, and that's what I try to do. I try to lead by example. We also we have core values. Obviously, the organization has core values that expect every employee to uphold, and along with leading by example is to recognize and reward the employees as you go through the year.
All right, thank you. What steps do you take to ensure the company's values and cultures are upheld across different departments or branches?
It's primarily supporting the core values that the organization has established and every employee should know. And then really for me, it's just to lead by example. If they see me doing things and being proactive, and I don't normally step on their toes by going into their clients, although it's my prospect as well, and I'm responsible for the revenue. But it's just to communicate core values and then reward the employees as they achieve their goals. And it's not just in a compensatory way. Sometimes it's things that they get involved in. It could be at the local school level, and it's still promoting very strong values in their communities and for them.
Thank you. How would you prepare for unexpected for the unexpected if similar situations occur? For example, COVID-19. How would your company handle another crisis?
Well, by the nature of the beast, we are a remote sales organization. So there are times when, things happen. The biggest issue is connectivity. So if we can't communicate via the internet, that's a problem.
Okay.
What we do is there's various access points in the field, including renting workspace by the day that the employee has as an option. If their internet provider shuts down or blows something or whatever, they can still accommodate to make whatever change they need. But so in my organization, it's not much. At the corporate level, it's probably a little different because I wasn't sitting next to a group of people, to have to combat that. and then adhere to whatever, regulatory processes there are. So we were in the field, we were better handled. We were able to handle it and adjust a lot better than maybe what's in the corporate office it was.
Thank you. How would you use the management functions, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, according to Henry Fowler's 4 management functions?
Okay. So one last point that I was going to make on the previous question was we also have policies in place that address for anybody that travels. So there's a lot of structure in terms of what you can and can't do, although there is a lot of freedom to do as you need. And most of that gets approved by me at some point, and it doesn't take long to kind of, see what you can and what you can't do. Now, on the management functions, corporate sets the objectives for myself and the team. And so the projected revenue that they want to be gained out of the region. We have analysts and consultants, and I review the data and compare it to previous year's performances. Then we develop strategies based on industry knowledge. So I'll give you an old reference. Every company has a budget, an IT budget. And in that budget, they might have to address new hardware, services, technology. They might have to address a gap or something. So if we know that in advance, there's a big advantage that we have over some of our competitors who maybe aren't using the technology to their best way. So after we develop the strategies based on industry knowledge, and that's key, then we use AI to hedge our efforts. And sometimes it flushes out opportunities that weren't necessarily made public. We then build a strategy for the team, and that includes the reps involved, the input from them, and then we implement. And then the last thing is where you mentioned controlling. We have bi-weekly forecast calls. So within the applications, we can forecast what we're going to close on a specific time frame, and then I can follow through to make sure that all the T's and I's are dotted. And then we have real-time quota attainment. So anytime you close a deal, it's telling you what percentage you've reached, which is going to affect your pay at the end of the quarter. And then we have opportunity reviews where we monitor and review the status of a deal. Not everything goes straight forward. Sometimes there's flags off. Sometimes an executive leaves town, they go on vacation, and the deal kind of delays. So there is a very sophisticated process in place that most people don't see.
Thank you. Okay. How do you encourage a culture of continuous improvement with the organization?
Well, during the interviewing process, you find out what motivates the individual to do. They have kids, they have a family, they want to buy a house, they want to buy a car, they want to travel. There's other things, normal things that people want to go through. So it's important to kind of flush that out at the beginning to identify it. The company itself will offer advanced educational pursuits. We also offer certification programs that allow for movement to other positions. So if someone has an interest in going, let's say they want to be a technical specialist or something, or a systems engineer, there's a defined process that they can go through, and eventually they will transfer out of my department and go into that department. So, and we encourage it. I mean, there's you're going to be at the very best that you can be as an employee, but also as a person, as a family person.
Can you walk us through, like, when you first started in the organization, did you start at the level that you're at, or at a lower level, and how you move up?
Yeah. So I was hired on as a manager, and I should say that I have 37 years of experience in the sales in a sales environment at a professional corporate level. So I've worked with small to medium business, and then the enterprise accounts, which is a large companies across the U.S. So that's when I came on. I knew I wanted to get to the next level, which is a director spot, And so you have to be successful at what you currently have and be able to define and then demonstrate to the organization that you have the skill set necessary to move to the next grouping. For me personally, I decided not to make the next jump, which would have been to the kind of an executive level, simply because I've done a lot of traveling and I chose not to travel anymore, especially during the COVID stuff. So the director position, it's fairly easy for me. And I will say that I've learned a lot from a manager to a director. Not everyone has the same drive that you have, so you can't hold that against someone. Say, why don't you do this? This is that's not the way people are.
Absolutely.
So as a manager, as a first-time manager, I learned that lesson pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
And once you learn it, you don't forget it, and then you kind of move on.
What roles does quality management play in achieving the organization's goal?
At the technical level, everything. I don't per se test the software. We have systems engineers, people that do that, but I expect it to work. And then what doesn't work is the connections that the clients need. So they might have what they call a legacy system, and it's kind of antiquated, but that's what they use, and it's too expensive to remove, and the customer can't do it all. So those are some of the obstacles that we face out in the field. But from a quality perspective, the resources are good, the talent is good, and we've yet to come across something that we weren't able to resolve.
Okay, thank you. Can you describe a specific initiative to improve operational efficiency and effectiveness or quality control?
Yeah. So the use of AI in our everyday work helps us write better engagement contracts, streamlines our communications, predictive scores on client agreements, and then it scores the opportunity based on company revenues. So it kind of removes some of the bias that we might bring. Also too, we're salespeople, so we tend to talk at length. And the AI kind of streamlines it for us to make it more easier for the client to recognize the benefit, which is once they recognize that benefit and that it matches up to what they're wanting to achieve, then we can move forward with the deal.
How did your organization recover from the aftermath of COVID-19?
Well, for my extended sales team, we were mobile to begin with, so it had very little impact on the actual process, internal process. Our engagements continued with implementations being pushed out depending on client needs and location. So, that's where the Zoom calls, the team calls kind of kicked in. And we were doing those kind of things. As technology kind of enhances, you have to adapt to meet the client, very similar to what we're doing now. And so that's what we've done.
Okay, so I am aware that it did not affect your organization, but it probably affected your clients. So how did you guys accommodate,
we typically deal with the C-level. So they're running a business. So they're, just because of COVID doesn't mean they had to find ways to continue their business and the livelihood. Were there shortcuts taken? Maybe on their part, but for the most part, they still had the needs. It was just how we did it, not so much what we did. And for us, we come in, we're doing stuff remotely, we're doing stuff on servers. People don't tend to see that stuff. All of a sudden, one day you show up and you can't log in. Hey, what happened? Oh, well, they changed all this stuff. So those are the things. But I would say that the clients were very receptive. Now, I will say that there was some strange occurrences that happened during the process.
Can you explain those, or?
Well, I mean, working from home, all of a sudden, there might be a cat that jumps on the lap of somebody, or their daughter or their son runs into a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, and all of a sudden wants to tell their dad because they're still dads.
Absolutely.
And so that was kind of funny, and people had to apologize for things. But yeah, I mean, for us, we understood it, and I'm sure it happened, in my organization as well. So.
Okay. Have any process changed or business hours changed based on the effect after the effects?
After we got over the initial shutdown, in our organization, everybody has a laptop, so they're all mobile if need to. So, and at times people have to work from home because they don't feel good, they're sick, something happens at home. So no, we didn't feel much of an impact, and for the most part, other than maybe, just uncertainty as to what was going on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everyone kind of
I think that was
rebounded
all
back
of us,
pretty
yeah.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How was the organization's size changed post COVID-19? Small business loans, stimulus bills. Explain.
As they say, lean and mean. My team remained the same. There was no immediate impact. I still needed the same amount of reps to cover the same amount of territory to get to the financial goal that they want us to hit. As an organization, we partnered with technology schools to tap into internships and gain access to engineering students. So I saw this tactic being used by another company that I worked for, and they, in essence, created these internships for these students to see what it was to be an engineer and to work in an actual hands-on environment, using the services and technologies that maybe they don't have access to, and that's worked out really well. So, but for me, it's a different skill set, and the company, I think, did the right thing by doing these partnerships.
Okay. How does your organization work through the strategic management process?
Well, I've participated in a couple, but it's usually based on a project. We work in a technology bubble. What worked last engagement doesn't always work for the next client. The technology landscape moves, new hardware, always working with the client, but the hardware changes, faster processors, AI has changed everything. But honestly, it looks like what we call business intelligence. I believe we're well prepared. Coming from a banking background, we used to call it disaster recovery. So we have plans in place. But most of this question gets determined at a higher level than me. I don't get to determine the direction that the company's going to go in.
Would you be able to tell us some of those plans, or you don't, the plans in place?
Yes, they will share that information with me, and I'll come in and say, well, yeah, a customer's not going to do that, or a customer's not going to let us do this, and stop their business just to gain information. So sometimes there are plans that are made at a certain level, and that's what they're expected to do. But the reality comes when you're having to deal with a client, and the client isn't going to shut down his business to see if your solution is going to work. So, we have access to the analysts and the consultants that come in, and they have hours, white papers that they write on the various services. And so when we meet with them and they say, this is the path, this is the direction, we usually agree. We're not going to deviate from that process.
Thank you. Does your organization use SWOT or pestle analysis? I'm not even aware what that is. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a process that you use to determine, how you plan, implement a system, and that's what I meant. That sometimes it's like they want to implement a specific project, and so I get involved at the project level, not at the organization level, because it really doesn't impact something. I mean, sometimes it could be as simple as them coming to me and my piece, just my piece of it, which might be one piece of that, that says, we'd like to get more of this specific. How does the client actually use this? Do you think we can actually, watch him use it, kind of thing? And then that's when, I'll come in and say, no, I think you can't do that. You'll have to pay for that privilege to do that kind of an analysis. But for the most part, like I said, I've used it on projects, one-off projects that specifically affect my area. I could be marketing, yeah, that decision is made above me.
Okay, thank you. How would your organization prepare for another pandemic or similar situation?
I think we're well prepared. I think we learned a lot. Like I said, our organization in the field didn't really miss a blink. It was everybody that was at corporate. So coming from a banking background and having the disaster recovery and redundancy built in within the infrastructure of the systems, I think we're well suited. We're well positioned, and I think that the executive team learned a lot about the employees and their resilience to be able to adapt as uncertainty was kind of evolving around us. So keep a level head and taking it one day at a time certainly worked for us.
And let's say the next crisis is not going to be a pandemic. Let's say you guys don't have access to the internet. How would you guys handle that?
There is when I say redundancy, so not only does the information go out to the internet and to the servers, but it's still on the laptops.
Okay.
So we could still function for a period of time. Now, if you're saying 6 months to a year, that might be a game changer.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you got to remember that before we ever got to the internet and the wireless, there were actual processes in place.
Absolutely.
So one example that I always like to give is when you go to a retail store and the internet is down, they can't they can't process the charge, right? They can't do the credit card, they can't do all of that. Well, in reality, they can. They used to do it like that. They used to just have a little charger thing, and they put your credit card, and they'd swipe it, and you had carbon, and that's how business was conducted. So there is always something that you can do. So I don't tend to be one that panics. I was around for Y2K. I worked for IBM at the time. IBM had us all come into the office. We all came into the office, and we sat there, and we looked at each other. And this was, my shift was like 10 to 7 in the morning. And so it was quiet. There was no, everyone was at their desk. Nothing happened. But, the company didn't know.
Yeah.
So we all rushed in. We sat there, and then we watched as the new year rang in. And, I think I had one call. And on that call was a client of mine that their AS400 had gone down. Well, it turns out, this was New Year's morning, it turns out that somebody hit the building and knocked the computer over. That had nothing to do with the Y2K.
Okay.
So, that kind of serves me as an example of, the hype and then the panic and then nothing happened.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And where do you, to end this, where do you see yourself in the future within the organization?
Well, I probably see myself retiring.
Retiring?
And
how far from now?
Very close.
Very close. Okay.
So we're in the process of negotiating that with the company, and they've been very supportive. Finding my replacement, I made some recommendations, testing, if you will, and then for me personally, I'm going to be moving on to a consulting process. So last year I took on an AI project that they had me do. Speaking of your programs up here, that was one of the programs that they had me do. And they sent me to go to class. So I spent the first quarter of last year working on that. And now this year, as I'm migrating into my retirement, I'll be taking the second level course on AI development and helping them work through their processes for that.
Okay.
So that's where I'm going. I'm going to slow down a little. I'm not going to travel as much, but I still got my hand in on the AI stuff.
Okay.
And at least for another year.
Okay.
So.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for this process, and I hope it's helpful.
I hope so too. I hope I get an A.
I'm sure she'll get one.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.